Live streaming service. Welcome to Force 13 Live. Here is a tropical weather update, and as you can see, we've got everything going on, and I have to say the situation is not getting any better. We're in day 3 of our live coverage, if you want to call it all coverage. I mean, I think it's a nice feed that we're showing time and again, and we're still showing it here because there's so many graphics to attend to, and I think this is actually a better layout than the other one that we had anyway, although it doesn't show the wind probs, but you can see them go along the screen every so often. Anyway, good morning. It's 11 AM on the US East Coast. My name's Nathan Foy. I'm joined this morning by our team members, 2 of us here this morning. I'm joined by Strat and Leighton. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And what the main feature today, I mean, there's more than one main feature. Not only has Hurricane Florence rapidly intensified to a Category 3, but Typhoon Mangkhut has also intensified as well, similarly to Category 3 status as it enters the Philippine Sea. And Hurricane Helene is now a Category 2 as it moves away from the Cape Verde Islands out to sea. And Hurricane Isaac is holding on somehow to Category 1 as it goes towards the Lesser Antilles.
Just a lot of activity that we're seeing. It's pretty crazy time of year, to say the least.
Totally crazy. These graphics that we're showing on the screen right now, those are the wind speed probabilities. They'll have changed a little bit at the latest update. And I think we've already seen some of the National Hurricane Center forecasts go by. And just to read off the latest from Hurricane Florence, what they're saying. Florence has rapidly strengthened into a major hurricane. That's what it was on our update earlier on today as well. We did an update at 9 AM. Currently at 25 degrees north, 60 degrees west. 115 miles per hour. And a pressure of 962. Let me just command these slides for a moment. Here is the latest imagery of Florence. You can see how it's been developing in the last few frames there. Movement just still pretty much due west, but slightly north of that. What we can also see is what Leighton is showing us on his screen in this hour as well. And you can see the bigger picture of all the systems in the Atlantic right now, and that system in the Western Caribbean as well, which now has a 40% chance in the next 5 days.
Yeah, that thing's been going berserk over the last several hours.
You know, the European has distinctly... It hasn't, I don't think... I just woke up recently, so I didn't get to see the European 0Z, but even though it hasn't showed up on the parent model, it's been showing up on it overall as a 60% chance of development there.
It's been having this bizarre, really intense convective burst that's been sheared off towards the east for the last several hours.
Are you able to zoom in on that? Because it's the only one that I don't have available to me.
I don't think I can zoom in on it, unless I go to the ROM and load that one in, but that'll be an hour out of date.
Well, it doesn't matter. We need to see it properly. Whilst we wait on that, there's Florence again. You can see how the eye has been developing in the last few hours. Strat, you've woken up to see this, and were you expecting it this morning?
I mean, I knew the storm was going to strengthen. It was starting to try and open up an eye last night. Unfortunately, it really has, but I wouldn't really say it's completely unexpected, to say the least.
No, especially when you were looking at it last night, and you sort of felt, well, here we go. Tomorrow morning it might end up looking a bit like this, and it's proven true. Alright, let's see if we can look at Olivia. This is Olivia right now, and you can just about make out the Hawaiian Islands, the big island on the left-hand side of that image. That's how close the storm's starting to get, and it's holding on to hurricane status, but it's having a sloppy time of it, and looks like it's being blown away a little bit in those last frames.
It does seem like it. I'm pretty sure I can double check right now that it's starting to enter an area of higher shear.
And it looks like it's surrounded by pretty dry air as well.
Yeah, there's loads of dry air in that region. It's the same area of dry air that's impacted Paul over the last 24 hours or so.
And Paul has really, really struggled.
It's actually still in low to moderate shear, so it's probably going to be dry air doing most of the work against the storm at the moment.
It is.
Alright then. Obviously a tropical storm watch remains in effect for the Hawaiian Islands at this time. For
I think it's
many
actually
of them.
been extended to a tropical storm warning for some of the islands.
I'm not aware of that being the case. The update is due right now. Yeah, it's probably, yes, tropical storm warning for Maui County and Hawaii County, and a tropical storm watch for Oahu. Now, those warnings have just been issued at 5 AM Hawaiian Standard Time. So, tropical storm warning now in effect for some of those Hawaiian islands. You'll be able to see the track map, hopefully. Well, first we've got Florence. This is what Florence's track map looks like. And they're still going for a major hurricane landfall into North Carolina. Although models have been shifting just a little bit further north again. Notably, the HMON has taken it the furthest north it has said so far. Still a landfall in North Carolina, but it's continuing to shift a little bit. And the NHC is pretty much one of the more southerly of the model spread. The NHC track. So it's quite likely that the storm could be going along somewhere on the northern side of that cone, but still we have to keep watching for the southern side. The threat to South Carolina is starting to decrease slightly, especially further south, but further north, Myrtle Beach especially, things are going to get pretty difficult over there. And North Carolina looks like it's going to get the worst of the storm at the moment, but there's still a lot of time for the storm to play with. 3.5 days. Thursday daytime is when they're expecting landfall at the latest advisory. That's been shifting around quite a bit in recent days. You know, Wednesday is going to be the last time that you need to be completely prepared for the storm.
Yeah, no, there's the interesting graphic of the arrival time of winds right now for the Carolina coastlines. It's Wednesday, 8 p.m. is the earliest reasonable. So, landfall on Thursday, but you could get conditions coming in as soon as Wednesday evening. Although it does say most likely would be Wednesday morning. Regardless, you're going to have a storm that starts impacting overnight into the early hours of the morning. So, you need to make sure you're ready before the end of the day on Wednesday.
Leighton, you're looking at the satellite imagery right now. What are your thoughts on that?
On Florence or the general? Florence has been organising pretty well over the last several hours. I've actually been watching the ring go very deep and everything's starting to wrap around it. Form and progress.
Can you tell us about the plans for the reconnaissance planes?
There should be a centre fix in the next half an hour to an hour.
So they're coming in whilst we're on the air now?
Yeah, there should be. It had a delay taking off, so it didn't make it in time to get the fix in before the advisory.
Okay, well that's interesting to know. So they'll be due at any time, and we can pick up on what strength it's saying that the storm is. Here's the latest map on Olivia. So that has just updated. They're saying at the advisory 85 miles per hour, moving west at 10. And you can see now it is 48 hours away from striking the islands as a tropical storm. But there's, you know, I'm actually surprised they've not issued a hurricane watch on that, considering how close that last hurricane dot is.
Yeah, right now they expect it to pass a 70 miles an hour
70.
tropical storm.
And
Although considering the appearance of the storm, it may be weakening a bit faster than that.
but they do expect it to survive all the way through the 5-day window and continuing on towards the west. Goodness knows where it's going.
Yeah, before they said it'd be a tropical depression at day 5, now they say it's going to be a tropical storm.
And the advisory before that, they said tropical storm, so who knows. You can see Helene briefly on the left-hand side there, just because I've got no graphics on the main panel for that, but I do have the forecast track, and the National Hurricane Center expect that Helene will reach major hurricane status out in the eastern Atlantic, curve off towards the north, and gradually weaken. That could be a distant threat to the Azores as well, you never know.
Yeah, models long-term show it trying to meander around there for a little bit.
We'll show those shortly as well. This is Isaac, Hurricane Isaac, still 75 mile an hour winds, pretty much as you were last night, to be honest. It looks very much the same, looks pretty bad. And it is expected to impact the Lesser Antilles as a weak hurricane. No warnings out just yet, but they'll probably issue hurricane watches for some of those islands later today or early tomorrow.
Yeah, it assumes so at this point. It looks like it's still continuing more of a westerly path. I don't know which models are still hooking it north a little bit. I think the HWR might still be trying to do it. It is. But it does it later on, which means that the further south it stays, the weaker it's probably going to end up getting. So that's more favorable for Isaac to weaken quickly. Although it is kind of noticeable, some models try to start hooking it around day 5 into Hispaniola.
Alright. Leighton, show us that the radar from Guam.
That got knocked offline by the Typhoon at about 9:50 UTC this morning, but this was the last frame it managed to catch.
So that was the last frame before the radar got knocked out by the storm.
Yeah.
And that was quite a while ago now then. 6 hours.
Yeah, about that.
5.5 hours. And that's what the storm looked like at the time, rapidly intensifying. Can you tell us, did it make landfall on Rota?
Yes.
Did
Did
you
it about an
show
hour
us?
before the... could probably.
Could you show us that?
Oh, god damn it. I
No.
refreshed the loop a few hours ago. Because I thought the radar had glitched on me, so I lost the loop.
Right, well it looked very close, and I'm sure we'll have the radar up some other time. Now I want to show
radar,
the... Go ahead.
It did pass over Rota. It made landfall about 9:30 this morning.
This-
8:30 UTC, sorry.
This is the model spread of Hurricane Florence, according to many of those models. Not all of them are included there, including 1 or 2 important ones. That's just the way this graphic is. A lot of squiggles off the coast of North Carolina. Still is the potential for stalling on or offshore, but it's looking less likely that it will be offshore. Isaac, still the navgem persisting on recurving the storm before or sort of during reaching the islands, which can't be good. HWRF had something similar to that, but as a category 4 earlier on last night, but now it says a category 3 for Puerto Rico, but that is just the HWRF. Well, I don't know about that one, but the consensus is that the storm will remain weaker than that, and it will move into the Caribbean and probably die off or stay very weak, and that means it's most likely not going to recurve towards at least the eastern United States, but maybe it's something to watch later on, as well as that other system in the Western Caribbean. And this is Helene, which has all sorts of random things. I'm sure Strat will show us that shortly. And this is the latest on Olivia, and you can see pretty much, in fact, every single model on that ensemble members there have the storm striking the Hawaiian Islands, so it's inevitable now. It's what strength is the question. There's the wide shot of the Atlantic, all the 3 hurricanes active, and that area of interest which has a 10% chance. And there's another look at the Atlantic Ocean on the top right hand side, including that area in the west. These are the percentage chances for tropical storm conditions in the Philippines. For Typhoon Mangkhut, up to 52% on the Batanes Islands, and most of northern Luzon with elevated chances This is for Isaac. You can see there 40% chance on Dominica and Guadalupe. Interesting how they are so low at this point. I thought they would have been higher. This is for Hurricane Olivia. 68% chance of tropical storm conditions on Maui. And of course Florence. Starting further north this time. 60% chance in Norfolk, Virginia. Nearly 30% chance in Washington, D.C. And inland, 80% in Raleigh. And 75% in Greensboro. And along the coastline, 95% chance at Jacksonville. Jacksonville, North Carolina, that is. Jacksonville, Florida, ironically, is still there as well, with 7%. Myrtle Beach at 85. Charleston at 50.
It's kind of surprising to see such high odds that far inland, 75% in Greensboro.
Yeah.
That just shows the intensity that they expect this storm could be.
Alright, Strat, do you want to show us some of the models in more detail?
Yeah, sure. Let's pull up some of the computer models. Gotta actually go to forecast models first. We'll start off with Florence, and then I'll pull up screen share on my computer immediately after it loads up. So we'll start with the HWRF, and it's going to be loaded up now, so I'll just screen share that.
Good idea.
So here's Florence. HWRF initializes it at 83 knots at 2 a.m., so that's probably accurate. It has it right about now being 105 knots, which is also pretty reasonable. And then from here, it strengthens it to about 120 knots at peak, and actually 124 at peak, and
145 miles an hour.
Has it make landfall in the South Carolina-North Carolina border as a major hurricane with about 125 miles an hour. The HRF is still one of the further south models to keep in mind.
Yep.
And it weakens it pretty quickly, but still has it as a tropical depression at the South Carolina, Tennessee, and North Carolina, Georgia border. At 126 hours, it keeps it as a tropical storm for until hour 117 in this run. It only goes out to day 5, so I know you have pictures for the projected rainfall, but, you know, it's starting to get to the higher chances.
I did earlier. I can tell you from the latest HWRF that isolated amounts of 26 inches according to that model.
And that's only in the first 5 days.
That is just one scenario, and that is just about in North Carolina inland near the border with South Carolina that it's talking about for that. I just wonder, go to the HMON please and show us.
Here, the HMON. Let's go further back to the start, just get a better grip, just let it load up. Alright, here we go. This is the HMON has a weaker. I don't know.
Now this one is interesting because the HMON has it going further north than it's said so far. It used to go quite far south, but now it takes the storm, I think, to Morehead City.
Yeah, it has it at 12 hours from 2 a.m., so has it in about 3 hours is 105 knots. So that makes some sort of sense. By 24 hours, it has it as 103. It's one of the models that has it a bit weaker. But so you go to 48 hours, we have it at 121 knots.
There's going to be a lot of twists and turns in the storm's intensity in the next 3 days.
Yep. HMON peaks it at 123 knots offshore.
So that's 145 miles an hour, and then
has to make landfall. It slows it down significantly before it gets to the coast. You'll see this is 75 hours. It doesn't make landfall until 96 hours, so it slows it down a bit earlier on than the other models.
That's literally 4 days from now. So we're talking about Thursday morning? Friday morning.
Yep. It allows a bit of weakening for the storm due to that, so it makes landfall as about a 95 knot system.
Landfall at high-end category 2.
And it definitely expands the wind field of the system as it moves inland. You can see wind field reaching up towards the Delmarva Peninsula there.
And the HMON model also has an expected rainfall amount of up to 23 inches. So they're in pretty good agreement, those two models, in how much rain, but the question is where.
And I think the thing to also know is those models only go out to 5 days, and there is the chance that with the system encountering a weak steering current that it could stay inland over the Carolinas for...
I think it accounts for most of it. Maybe you might want to add another 33% or so to make it 30-something inches possible.
But here it is.
It's a lot.
For some reason, it still has it with a minimal amount of tropical storm force winds offshore at 126 hours. It's probably weaker at this point.
Let's move on to some other models if we can.
Let's take a look at the GFS run. It's moved markedly to the west in its latest run, so it no longer really has it meandering off the coastline. The ensembles for it have also really caught up with the trend that most of the other models are saying. Although it does initialize the storm weaker in terms of wind speed than the other models do.
It always does.
So at 24 hours, or at 48 hours, passing to the southwest of Bermuda at 88 knots, making landfall at about 100 hours or so as a Category 2 storm, then stalls right on the coastline in between the Outer Banks and the actual inland South Carolina for a bit, and then it moves inland. Meanders around, and then they bring it back out to sea and re-intensify it.
You've got to be kidding me. Could you show us models on Isaac? I just want to make this pretty concise because I'm recording it for the channel as a separate production as well, but we'll stay on after this recording ends too. And those who are watching the recorded update, we are live for the foreseeable, Force 13 on YouTube. youtube.com/force13/live. That's the live link. That's whenever there's a stream active, we'll be there, and we're here. Here is the HWRF for Isaac.
Yep, here's Isaac. You can tell it's notably smaller than the other systems. HWRF initializes Helene a bit weaker, but here's Isaac. It starts it out as a minimal hurricane, which is just about right. Weakens it initially down to about 50 knots.
Really?
Then and then for some reason, as it approaches, the HWRF re-intensifies it into a hurricane,
and then
almost as a major hurricane as it passes the islands. And by the end of the run, has it as a Category 3 approaching Puerto Rico.
What is that all about?
This is a major outlier as well.
Massive. So, I've never seen such a big outlier.
So, if someone sees the HWRF and decides to make a video saying there's going to be a Category 3 hurricane heading towards Puerto Rico, don't count on that at all.
They might be right, though. You can't put anything past this season.
Can't rule it out, but saying that as it's a fact is not really the right thing to do at this point.
You can't say any of this is a fact. These are model runs. They are estimates from supercomputers, and some supercomputers aren't very good, as we've seen in the past. Keep going.
And here's the HMON. Initializes it right around the same strength. Holds on to the intensity for a little bit, but weakens it for the most part, has it as a minimal tropical storm by the time it impacts the islands, then dissipates it as it moves westward through them. Maybe holding on as a tropical depression, although it doesn't really look like it at this point.
Alright.
And the GFS run, if we go back to it. Here it is.
Yep.
There's Isaac at its current position as of 2 a.m. Eastern. Moves it west, maintaining intensity for the most part, and weakening slowly. Hits the islands as a minimal tropical storm, moves past and dissipates as we continue to move westward through it.
Someone's having a good time in the background. Could you show us the models on Mangkhut as well?
Yep. These are the models for Mangkhut right now. Go back, let this load in. In particular, here's Mangkhut, initialized at 2 a.m. at 87 knots, which is probably about accurate. Gotta let everything load in quickly. This started before landfall on Rota, so this is going to be a little dated. The new model runs start entering in about an hour or so.
Right.
But shows it about now is 110 knots, which is close to correct. Then continues to intensify it up to 130 some knots.
Blows up.
Actually makes it a Category 5 Typhoon just east of northern Philippines.
Yeah, you don't know about this model run. I've shown it in the Force 13 server on Discord, which you can also join. Where's the Discord link, by the way?
It is in the community tab.
It is in the community tab. You have to scroll down quite a bit now to find it. You might want to repost that later. Anyway.
Yeah, once I'm done screen sharing,
we saw that on this, and the model run had it going to 175 miles an hour. Am I right?
The current run has it as 142 knots peak. That's what it says.
Okay.
Right as tropical storm conditions start to impact Luzon, this brings it as a borderline Category 5 typhoon
over the Calayan Islands by the looks of things.
With typhoon force winds reaching the northern Philippines, tropical storm force reaching southern Taiwan.
Yep.
Then it brings it through still as a Category 4 typhoon.
Oh my god.
And it looks like, I'm not sure about the longer range models, but it could bring it pretty close to Hong Kong at this point in time.
Yeah, I saw that in the live chat earlier, mentions of possible Hong Kong impact.
And could you show us the GFS on that?
So the GFS quickly as well. Mangkhut. We're gonna go back to the start. It's gonna show it that models are starting to get in tight agreement, but they've shifted only slightly to the south lately. So it's Mangkhut's trying its best to thread the needle between the Philippines and Taiwan, but regardless, it looks like tropical storm force conditions going to impact one of the islands. But here's the GFS on Mangkhut. Intensifies it pretty quickly.
Ugh.
Don't pay attention to the pressure
of
876 because it says the winds are only 123 knots, which regardless is a very powerful Category 4 storm. This shows tropical storm force winds. This is tropical storm force winds impacting the Philippines and Taiwan at the same time. It also brings it in between, a bit further north than the HWRF, but not by much at all. But strong winds impacting both. And then this has it impact Hong Kong as a typhoon later on in its run at 150 hours. So we wait another day, and then we can really look into this when the cone starts to reach this area as a possibility. But right now, the main concern should be around the Philippines and Taiwan, which both look like they're probably going to get hit with some sort of tropical storm force winds at this point.
Oh dear. Well, I guess we can leave it there with the models for now. I just wanted to break this up into sort of two chunks just so that I can record a section for today's live broadcast, just for people who want to catch up with what we've just been discussing in the last 30 minutes. Those who are watching the recording that I'm just about to conclude, we are still streaming live on the live page, youtube.com/force13/live.